Morning, everyone. I want to talk about the county lines drug distribution model in England and Wales. This is a model that criminally exploits children to distribute and sell drugs. Children, some as young as 12, although the average age tends to be between 14 and 17, are used to work far from home, sometimes for extended periods of time. Current research on the exploitation of vulnerable children has largely focused on child sexual exploitation, which leaves a gap in the understanding of child criminal exploitation, or CCE, as I will refer to it. And that term is not widely used nor understood either, certainly outside of policing. The definition given by the Home Office, for argument's sake, is somewhat cumbersome, whilst the Children's Society succinctly and perhaps not surprisingly opted for the words of young people, who describe it as, and I quote, "when someone you trusted makes you commit crimes for their benefit," unquote. So issues of vulnerability and exploitation exist at the very heart of child criminal exploitation. And yet, in addition to the definition issues I've just described, there's also a lack of a standard definition of a vulnerable person in this context. I'm sorry, my dog's making noise in the background. It is argued that the lack of understanding of just who is a vulnerable person has a detrimental effect on the ability of the police and other agencies to deliver effective and sustainable responses, so argued Jeff Colliandris in 2015. This is of concern because nearly all police forces in England and Wales have reported cases of this form of child criminal exploitation, whilst the identification and understanding of the exploitation of vulnerable children continues to be described as, and I quote, very variable across and within different geographical areas and organisations. So this has the potential to lead to failings in the identification of vulnerable victims and inconsistencies in how children and young persons are dealt with by the relevant authorities. In my research with the police, academics and other relevant agencies, I'm critically examining how a lack of a standard definition of a vulnerable person affects the understanding of the concept of vulnerability within policing, as well as its limitation to deliver effective and sustainable responses together with partner agencies. The findings today indicate that despite the ambition set out in the policing vision for 2025 to deliver a better understanding of vulnerability as a means of improving and differentiating service and protection, there's still some way to go. Several factors influence how a child who is vulnerable to criminal exploitation is treated by the police, and these include police culture, awareness and training, the particular role that the officer is partaking at the time, limited resources dedicated to child criminal and child sexual exploitation, and the type of crime committed. That list is not exhaustive. These findings echo the findings of Shaw and Greenhow in 2019 and 2021, who refer to a need to focus on vulnerability instead of prosecution-led approach when offending occurs as a result of exploitation. I began my research in 2019, and since my initial pilot study, it is evident that some progress has been made, but the speed of change has been described by one participant as like trying to turn a tanker with